Okay, say it again.
Pearl, you're the host now, and you're gonna let people in.
She's so sweet.
You are the host.
Okay. You are the host now.
Water. What else can I get you?
That's it. Thank you.
Is this the right temperature for your water?
It is. It's cold.
Are you comfortable in?
I am.
Do you need anything?
Nope. I already had a donut. I'm ready.
Basically, Jeff Glover. So are you good? Or Phil Jones? Are you good?
I'll take Phil Jones.
Okay.
Thanks.
I would take Jeff Glover.
I'll take Jeff Glover. Fine. I'll take. Stay participant. Can you hear me? Ann, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yay. Can you see my screen share?
I can see your screen share.
Hold on. Let me do this real quick and tell me if you guys can see it. Can you see my presentation?
Yep.
Yeah.
We can.
Wait, did you say no?
No, we can.
Oh, okay. I'm just making sure. Hey, you guys ready?
Are you warmed up?
I'm just warmed up. It's just double day for me, girl.
Oh yeah, did we just do that?
I did. I feel like I crushed it too. So, you know. Who knows what version this will be? It's always different, you know. Welcome to home inspection negotiations. Okay, do you guys have any
Do you guys want to start with questions? This is a more
yes, this is more casual. I like questions, or is there something you want me to touch on? So I'm happy to go through this, and we went through a lot of negotiation things this morning, but if there's any questions, what you get stuck on.
In this market right now with how crazy and insane people are. And like the expectations, right, of like people, I feel like it's hard to meet right now because sellers think that it's one way.
What you been doing? Why didn't you turn on TV?
What's your
search them up? I couldn't go.
Yes, you might get into it later, but what's your suggestions for bridging the gap of unrealistic?
Do you feel like you're having unrealistic on the buy side, like when you're out with buyers, or is it on the list side what you're getting?
Both. Like
okay.
Sellers are thinking, you know, like it's even though there isn't much on the market, sellers are still thinking that they can get away with saying no to everything, and then like buyers are, you know, obviously thinking that they can. And I have been able to get more from my buyers lately. It seems like, but still they're being. Expectations seem to be a little bit unrealistic on both sides.
Yeah. I think we kind of talked about that a little bit this morning. And so I was kind of saying, like, when you think about the last 10 years, I've been in the business for 10 years and was an admin negotiating all the deals. Starting in 2016, I did about 100 to 130 a year, where the agent, like you guys would literally drop the file on my desk and then you would just show up maybe at inspection or maybe if they needed to like pick a paint color. And then I did everything else, including repair negotiations, appraisal negotiations, like everything. So I got a lot of experience then, but like from 2016 to about, 20, right before COVID, basically what we would do is we would, get the inspection report from the buyers. They would ask for a lot of the things. We would send it to our contractor, Chris. He would quote everything on the report. Then we would pick and choose what were the most important things, or here's what we're going to do from his report. We'd have him go to our seller's house, do the repairs and say, here's the invoice, the repairs have been completed. So there was way more negotiation and sellers were like kind of expecting that they would have to do the repairs. Then COVID hits and everybody's waiving repairs. There's nothing. It's very lopsided, going from sellers doing everything to now buyers just being like, let me take the house because all the money's on the line, like we all know. And now over the last 2 years, and definitely heavier last year, we're moving into, hey, we're still in a seller's market, but buyers have more leverage because there's more options. Because from 24 December to 25 December, we had a 38% increase in inventory in the triangle as a whole. So there's more options. If I have 38% more options and I maybe have 2,000 due diligence, I might walk away from this house to go find this one. Or I don't love how this inspection report looks. I'm just going to lose the money and I'll go over here. And we didn't have that before because we didn't have options. So it was like, before we were negotiating everything, then nothing, and now there's options. And so it's like, it is somewhat of an even playing field, and it depends on the seller's motivation. Because I have people now that are giving more money than ever, and we talk about it in here. It's like you're like, no, I don't think you should give that much. But they're like, look, this is my situation. I want to move forward. And they're willing to give it. And instead of us saying, I want them to get the extra $5,000 or not pay that $5,000. You just need to let them do what they want to do, even if you feel like they're losing a little, because we don't need to be the hero. We just need to let them make the decision, give them the information. And if they feel like they want to move forward, then they do. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the trajectory of what happened. But like I was telling Anna this morning, I had a repair request for $28,500 with literally no substantiating evidence. Like I had the report, and yes, there were a couple things on there, but I've seen enough reports to know like there was not 28,000 worth of work. And so we ended up giving them 10, which was very generous. I didn't even think we should probably give them that, to be honest with you. And they sent me one estimate for $2,000, which was really frustrating to me for one piece of the inspection.
And asking for 20.
And asking for 28. I was like, what data? And then they sent me like a bullet pointed list. It was probably like a ChatGPT list or something, like this item, 5 to 15,000. Like that was their range, because they didn't get more, because they sent it to me on a Friday night at 9 p.m. and our due diligence was Saturday at 5. So, I mean, we had no earnest money, but I think it's just buyers are going to ask right now for whatever they think they can get. And you either have to hold them off or you have to let the seller decide. I had one over in Holly Springs last year. They asked for $12,000. This report was basically clean. There was hardly anything on it. We came back and we said, we'll give you $500 in the set on the screen porch. And they said, okay. So like and it wasn't even like a back and forth, because they had $10,000 due diligence. There was nowhere near $10,000 in repairs. And so you go, where's their motivation? What is the leverage you have? And then how do you kind of explain it nice to the other person? So just talking about like what we'll go over really quickly today. And I went over on my time this morning, but how do you get started on the reports? What to consider before you request? It's all about the setup. And when I say setup, it's literally from the moment you meet these people, your buyer consultation that you do. It's talking in every single house about what they can expect. Hey, there's a broken failed glass seal over here. The HVAC, is older. That might be a concern to us, like pointing out those little things in every house you see. So it's that setup. And then, every home is sold as is. We're going to look for safety or health hazards. If we're not setting them up properly from the beginning, that's where the terminations happen, because you're letting them run the show and they don't know any better. Because we have to think, people have maybe bought 1, 2, 3 homes ever in their lifetime. We do this every day. They don't know what they're doing, and they might have not bought a home for 20 years. So they just don't know what's going on. So we feel like we can't let them run it. We have to take charge and go, this is how it's going to go, because we've seen what people are getting on the buy side and what people are getting on the list side. So how to get all the parties on your side, and then any questions you guys have. So how did I get started? I mean, I was telling them at the end of the presentation this morning that you have to be so good in what you're doing. Like, I don't feel like I've arrived on pricing. I feel like pricing is so fluid for me, and it's something that still feels difficult, because especially in the last 2 years, there's no rhyme or reason on anything. When I did this for straight 4.5 years and I focused on this, and this was the main part of my job, I feel very proficient at this because I did it so much. So if you want to get better at something, right, like making phone calls, what do you have to do? Make more phone calls and hone in on your scripts. Same thing with pricing. You have to read the data, know the data, and just keep going down that path. Well, I went down that path. So if you're feeling that you're not confident in repairs, then you need to get with a contractor, ask them questions, review inspection reports, then send that to a contractor and ask, like, how much is CSST bonding? And when was it code? I believe it was 2011. So anything before 2011, CSST bonding is going to come up on the inspection report. It's probably like $300. It's bonding the gas and electrical meters for a lightning strike. If you know one thing that sounds random that they're not going to know, how smart does that make you feel in the moment? Look, seller's probably not going to do this. It was not code before 2011. Let's just skip over it and focus on something else. Does that make you sound like you have authority in the conversation? So those little nuanced pieces of stuff that comes up on every single report, you guys know. Google is your best friend. ChatGPT. I just did it last night. I'm putting an offer on a 1962 home, and I was like, I knew that time frame could have aluminum wiring. Well, it has. I asked them, and they said it has Romex, so we'll clearly find out during inspections. But I just asked ChatGPT. I was like, tell me about Romex wiring, and they still use it today. So that made me feel good, because I know aluminum can have issues with where the splices are and causing fires. Again, from learning it through people having aluminum wiring. So go research main parts of the house. You guys should be proficient is what is a gas pack for HVAC? What is a heat pump? And what is a furnace? Do you guys know the difference between those or what they look like? If you don't, you should just go Google that and find out. Because then when you're at the house, a gas pack like sticks out from the house and it's a packaged unit. Everything is in the same piece. A furnace would be like that long piece that you have in an upstairs unit and a compressor outside. Same thing with a heat pump. So you just knowing those little pieces, like just do some research on that. Connect with a contractor, have someone that you can call, that you can ask, how much is this? What does this mean? Is this piece supposed to be here? I've never seen this before. I just had one in Garner that had a direct vent hot water heater. And that's supposed to be used in like an attic, like directly vented through the roof. And they had done that. You know how you guys see it turned if it's gas, like out in the garage, like it turns and pipes the venting outside. Well, that can cause carbon monoxide buildup. I'd never seen it. He'd only seen a couple in the tens of thousands, however many thousands he's done inspection reports. So that was a big deal. But for me, I'd never seen it. So it's like doing a little bit of research. We did get the water heater replaced because it was a safety hazard. So little things you're probably not going to know, but you just figure out. Now you can use it down the line. These things, do you guys want me to kind of go through this stuff? Okay. So PEX is most common right now. You have PVC piping. Copper was used, early mid 1900s. You all see the flex pipe. It comes up on every single report underneath when they can't do it right underneath the bathrooms. It's not an approved method, but it's in all of them. Cast iron. You'll see in older homes, especially going out to the road usually. What we were talking about is there's a lot of people doing sewer scopes right now. And I might suggest a lot of my clients start doing them because of root intrusions. So we're seeing a lot of people asking, and you know why? Because they're ChatGPTing, what should I look for in inspections? Well, everything is being done by AI. Like, I'm getting so many emails of the questions to ask me as an agent. I'll get 10 questions in an email. Hey, we're looking for an agent. Can you answer these 10 questions? So people are now using it almost against us a little bit and saying, oh, well, what about this inspection? What about this inspection? And it's coming up with things maybe in our area, it's not as prevalent, but maybe when they're from the north, they might do more sewer inspections. They have a lot of trees there. So just kind of keep that in mind. The piping in the middle is polybutylene. If you haven't seen that, you have plastic fittings or copper fittings. Copper is the better of the two. It's supposed to it could have anywhere between a 30 to 60 year lifespan. A lot of them are 80s and 90s. So we don't know what is going to happen to the actual pipes. We know that the fittings are the issues with the leaks, but there was a class action lawsuit for those. So if you see gray piping in a crawl space, it's most likely polybutylene. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't buy the house. It just means have that conversation with your client, send them a link online of what that means, and then say, hey, how do you feel about this? If it does break or something happens, most insurance companies will cover the leak and what happens. They're not going to cover repiping your house. But to be honest with you, depending on how many connections and bathrooms and, if you have one kitchen and two bathrooms and they're on the main floor, it's really not that expensive to repipe the house because they leave those pipes in the wall and then they just are fitting where the water connections are through the crawl space. So you might have some drywall repair, but I got one quoted. It's probably a 1,300 square foot house in Holly Springs, and it was like $5,000 to $7,000. So, and it depends on the company, right? If they have a lot of marketing they need to do, it might be like 10 or 12. So, home siding, you guys know, stucco, masonite is basically pressed particle board. You'll see a lot of nail holes up the siding. That's how you know the difference between that and fiber cement, because there's a lot of masonite and fiber cement that can look the same because they replace sections and they want to match them up. So there's even
masonite with the
little wiggly.
Yeah, to make like that will like you would look at it and be like, oh, it's Hardy. So you do have to look because Hardy's installed with nails under and fasteners under, and masonite is fasteners through.
Yeah, like you can see the nail holes. Basically, the biggest thing with that is you want to make sure you caulk the edges of the seams, and you want to caulk anything around the nail holes. Just keep it painted, and it will last. So it's like taking an IKEA table and sticking it out in the rain. Like that. That's essentially what it is. And if you don't have it painted and sealed, it will start to wick and bubble up. Vinyl, stucco, fiber cement, masonite, moat brick, you know, of course, those are most of them. You guys will see on a lot of them, they talk about the stone that was installed years ago, and they'll say there's no weak holes in the stone. So if water gets behind the brick, it can rot out the sheathing on the house. I haven't really found a good solution for that one yet, but kind of just roll with it. Hardwoods, like know your difference in the hardwood floors, LVP, real hardwood floors, tile for especially for listings and what we're putting in here, because engineered hardwoods you generally can't refinish. It depends on what they are, like site finished or not site finished, pre-finished hardwoods. A lot of times they look like you could refinish them, but you can't. They're shiny and you have to just lay something over it. Any questions? Can you guys hear me okay on Zoom?
There's a question in the chat.
Oh,
Thanks, Pearl.
can you read it to me? Because I got it up on my screen. I don't want to.
Well, it was my question, but you're
Oh.
kind of basically going over it. It was just I posted it at the very beginning when you're like,
Oh,
questions.
oh, sorry. Yes.
No, you're so fine. You're fine. You're basically talking about it. I just wanted to know like your overview process of like when you get a report back from the buyer, like what are your next steps? But you're going over it the whole presentation.
Yes.
So
That,
ignore it.
I think is right after this one, so that'll be perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to make sure you could hear me because I moved away from my computer a little. So what to consider before you guys make a request? You know, how were the negotiations on the initial offer? Did the sellers budge or were they, you know, sticklers? Did they not want to give up any money in the beginning? Were there multiple offers? Did it take forever to hear back? If it did, you know, if you submit a request, you might need more time between when you submit the due diligence request because maybe they're analytical or they're older, to give them time to get their own estimates. And what's the seller's situation? Is it a relocation? Is it older couple? Are we asking for credits versus repairs? How is the agent on the other side? I want to get them on my side right from the beginning of the transaction because that is very important. We don't want to be combative. We don't need to be the hero. We don't need to be bumping heads when we're doing the initial offer because you can understand how appraisal and negotiations are going to go for repairs. You know, how have I treated them from the beginning? Am I being nice? Am I the annoying person that you talk about with, or like they go talk about with their team because you're being rude or you're just combative? The goal is to not be the hero. You need to be the connector. We're trying to close the deal, not just see who gets the better deal in the end. Mm-hmm.
What do you feel like is, I guess on both sides, reasonable amount of time? Because obviously due diligence period is usually 2 to 3 weeks. Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we try to do inspections kind of right away if we're on the buy side and get that information. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get quotes back. I mean,
yeah.
What's a reasonable time do you feel like to give the seller to, obviously you had the one last minute, like to give the seller time to also evaluate and maybe get their own quotes? Like what feels good?
I mean, I think if you came in with a shorter due diligence, I would say like 3 to 5 days, like give them a couple days. So if they need to call on a Monday and maybe the contractor can get out or work on it that night, then we can have something by Wednesday morning. Of course, credit is always the easiest thing to do if you're like sending it to a contractor. But I mean, I would say 3 to 5 days would be my opinion. I can get it done, but one thing I talked about earlier too is we have to remember that most people are selling 1 to 6 homes a year. They don't do this every day. They don't have the people in their pocket like we do, and we might need to coach them through it. So we're having to be the coach on the list side to help buyers through it and help their, you know, the buyer agent through with the buyer. And people don't do this all the time. So we know that we can get things done fast, but on the other side, you know, they could be going down the rabbit hole in the conversations they're having with their client. So I would say give them, you know, if we can give more time, same thing with listings. I mean, some people, again, 1 to 4 homes, like we all know that we're doing more production on Anna's team on call group, but there's a lot of people that don't. And so you give them as much time as possible because they might just not even have the connections to get responses.
I think you gotta remember too that like as a buyer's agent, when you present your findings, it's now time for the seller to take your findings and perform their response time. And I feel like that's a miss because so many times it's like, oh, we have all this time to get our stuff together. But like, then that's when you get into the conversations of due diligence is moving and things like that. Because like, you do have to realize like sellers have a right to look at what you've put together and say, does this match? Like, does this work? Are there answers that we can get from a contractor who did work 2 years ago? So like, just remember like due diligence deadline is time for you to have submitted and the seller to have examined your work and come up with a solution. So it's not when your work is due, it's when the project needs to be completed. So I always say, like, if you have an inspection or due diligence date of, never set them for a Friday or a Monday, never set them for a Friday or Monday. So Tuesday through Thursday, like yours should be backed up 3 or 4 days at least, because otherwise the sellers get squeezed.
Yeah, and that would be like minimum. Yeah.
And
less than 24 hours, I'm like, we're not giving you a response.
You tell me this too, but this is how I always operate. And if I'm at an inspection with my buyers, or we're not there and an inspector calls me and says X, Y, and Z, and we think there's something big, you're hearing from me before I walk away from that inspection. I'm not leaving until I have called and said, hey, Ashley, we had a problem.
Yes.
Like, it's not tiny. Like, there's going to be other stuff coming, but like, this is going to be a pretty big bridge that we got to solve. And so I will tell you, if you ever bring a buyer for a listing of mine, like, if you don't call me at the inspection, I don't think anything is a deal breaker. I'm just being real with you. Like, if you waited a week to tell me about something, it wasn't a deal breaker for your client. It wasn't.
Yeah.
So if you think it's going to be a problem.
But they don't know any better.
I know, but I'm telling you.
Another thing that I do, which is it tags off that, and on Zoom, this is a good idea to do, especially if you think there's major things. I take the inspection report, because our contractor, if they do like a 9 or a 1, or our inspector, we're usually getting it that night or the next morning. I will send the summary report to them and say, hey, we're still digesting all this information. Here's like some big concerns. Can your sellers look into this a little bit more? The crack in the right side foundation. Do they have any more info? There's a huge leak on the second floor. There's a big stain. What happened there? We know your roof was replaced, yada, yada. Is this an old leak? And I do it where I'm like asking questions and I send the report. So at least they have time to look at it. They can get their own inspections. Sometimes I have sellers that even start doing work because they just want their house to be better. I'm going to go caulk the thing in the kitchen. Hey, we're still digesting this. We haven't gone through everything. We're going to get a couple estimates. I want you to look at it. Here's the top things that you might want to get a jump on because of our timeline. So like, again, taking control of the situation and prepping in the next slide is all about the setup. How am I prepping the client before the offers are made? Have we spoke about the homes being sold as is? Like, are we prepping our buyer right so they don't freak out when the report comes in? Have I mentioned this in all the homes we're walking through? Hey, you see that glass failed window seal? Actually, it's not, they don't really even have to put that in the inspection reports anymore, but they want you to know that there's a broken seal there. It doesn't visually look great. It's probably going to come up on inspections. Hey, looks like there's about 30 window seals here. That's an issue for you visually that, could be something we reflect in our offer going in, but just know sellers are probably not going to replace the window seals because they don't even need to put those in the inspection report. Now they're just telling you to kind of cover themselves, which is what our inspector told us from the board. We're looking things that are major safety or health hazards: septic, well, radon, water leaks, HVAC not working, hot water heater not working, anything that was not functioning as it should be. That's what we're looking for. You're pointing out wood rot, HVAC issues, roof. And then you guys got to talk about, I didn't talk about this morning, but call the insurance agent that you work with and talk to them about roof, because every company is different. And if you're referring your buyers, if that home is 15 or 20 years old and the roof's not been replaced, there could be a chance that they don't get coverage for the roof. I don't know. Does anybody know that right now? That because of everything that went on in the past with COVID and all the roof replacements and how much money they were losing, where people were going in, waiving repairs, and then being in the home for 3 months, saying there's a wind or hail claim, and then getting a new roof. Think about how much money was paid out over those years, because we got ours replaced. Ours was leaking, but you need to really check on that, because that's a thing. I had a listing in Raleigh, and the house, maybe it was 2006, but the roof hadn't been replaced, so it was 20 years old. And they came there, and I think they brought a drone or wanted to do a visual inspection. And I think that specific company, I want to say it was Erie, was not going to cover the roof. But I work with Tim Royal from Farm Bureau. They will cover the roof. Sometimes there's a depreciation cost, or they'll only give you, let's say the roof was 15, they might only give you 7. But you need to look into that now, because that could be an issue. Once the inspection report is back, am I prepping the request? Like what you said, being proactive with the buyers. Am I prepping it and sending it to them? So, hey guys, got the summary report back. I'm still looking through it. I know there's some more major issues in the contract, blah, 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 whatever. let's set up a time tomorrow to talk about the inspection report. Like, I'm already on it. It makes them feel good that you've already reviewed it, because when they're coming from fear and they've never done it before, they haven't done it in 20 years, or they did it 3 years ago, but nothing showed up on that, just like yours, you're going to freak them out. So like this top one I have here is like, please find the summary report attached, as well as a repair request list I've prepared for some guidance. Please take a minute to review. Call me when you're ready to go through. We can remove or add whatever you want. One of the items I wanted your input on was the hairline cracks in the foundation. I wanted to see what you thought, and if you're interested in having a structural engineer out. What does this do? Covers me, right? Hey, this is something that's probably important. Do you want someone out? Because then we've had the conversation. They can't come back and say that I didn't bring that up specifically, because on this one, probably on the report, it says, if further concern exists, contact a structural engineer. Now, sometimes when there's a major crack and they're like, Ashley, there's something going on, you're probably going to need piers, or you might need reinforcements or joists, whatever, it will say contact a structural engineer. Like, there's two different phrases. If further concern exists, and yes, go ahead and reach out to someone. I just threw this radon example in. You know, my client had 3.4 on the report. They were really concerned because that means there's spikes over 4. Told the buyer, if we get half, if it's a win, because sellers don't need to do anything and they don't have to mitigate unless it's at least 4.0. So what we did is I said, why don't we say, hey, we're really concerned about 3.4. There's spikes over 4. You know, my clients are really probably going to put this system in. Let's just go in and ask for half, or let's ask for the whole thing and see if they give us half. I can't remember exactly on this one. There's 2 ways to do it. And we did. We got half of it. So it's like, it's the way that you ask it, and, you know, just being open to it. This is a real big issue for them. Depends on what else there is. And we got half of it. This is just another email that I sent out to one of my people. Overall, it's a fantastic report. More maintenance items. I know that HVACs are older. This one says it's at 14 is a differential. It should be 17 to 22. It could be one of these things. We could have an HVAC company out for 175 if you want, or ask the sellers for a home warranty. They've agreed to this. What do you think of this ask? My opinion is a low number on the HVAC for the second floor. So just trying to figure out, like, we could have someone come out, which I don't think they did, and then there was an issue, and then the home warranty was like not wanting to mess around with it. But I'm putting it out there. If you want to really find out exactly what's going on, this is what it costs. Do you want the person out? So again, laying out what you think and then giving them options. This was like, the seller's already agreed to this. Let's ask for a home warranty and ask for another $1,000 credit. Same thing I just talked about. Are you creating the request and sending it to the client? Here's what I think. Let me know. We can take out, we can add. Am I taking control of the report and giving my suggestions? Here's the items I feel we should ask the sellers to address. What do you think? How do you structure it? Repair or credit? Now, we have, like, the one that I told you for the 28,000. They already were getting some closing costs, like 6,000. So I was like, well, I don't know what you're going to do with that. So we ended up putting it on a DDRA, having it cut to a contractor. So they already had 6,000 in the offer, in the initial offer. So we said sellers will have check cut at closing for $10,000 to XYZ repair company. And then you send that to the attorney, and then it's on the seller side of the CD saying XYZ repair company, and it doesn't go on the buyer side.
And you don't send it to the lender, right, Mitch?
Now,
No.
the lenders, okay, because the lender's not gonna see the seller side, yeah.
They will, they could see the
They
seller
could,
side on the
because-
Ulta, but they also don't know if that was work that was completed beforehand, or they
Right.
owed something, you know, like.
This last one I did, the lender just said, make sure it only says this on the.
Yeah, like a full.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Instead of a really detailed line.
Yes.
So have it be very vague.
And be careful of, like Ashley mentioned, if you see things that you want to negotiate up front, be really careful about using additional provisions on your offers up front with repairs, because guess who sees those?
The appraiser.
And the lender. Everyone sees that. So now we've got something that we've got to go in and have verification, or they have to put value to it, and it becomes kind of a scrambly mess.
Yeah, and it's just up for, depending on who's the appraiser and if they're gonna say something about it. So we did one in Cary, and it said to make sure, like, that the hot water heater was functioning or one of the things. And it was like we're jumping through hoops to figure that out. And come to find out it was like a hydro heat system and it wasn't working and it was old and like there was just like, I don't know. I can't even remember how we got through it. We just said like the water heater was working that day. Like the contractor gave us that. So, I mean, my thought, Anna asked me this earlier. It's like, if there's something major, I want my people to quote it. I want to know that they've looked at it. Chris is my contractor that I use. I want him going in the crawl space and telling me like, this is the repair. I can do it for 13 grand, whatever. I trust him. If it's more than that, usually he's eating the cost or he's buffered in enough for contingencies that he may see. So it's pretty straightforward. Like if we're doing this repair, it's going to be that number. I would lean on, if I know what company I had come out, like a new HVAC, let's say it's just shot and not working. If I'm having Nolan Heating and Cooling and Fuquay doing it, I'm feeling good about it because I know them. I know what system and I know what work they do. So if that's the case, I might, get a credit if I have to do it after closing, if the sellers aren't open to that. So that was a thing that she asked, do you prefer it be done before or after? My thought is if it's something larger, I want it done before. Radon mitigation, you could do before or after. If they have to come in and add another suction point, well, maybe, say if it's 1,400, you get 1,700 just in case they couldn't mitigate it right the first time. So you guys have to just kind of think a step ahead of what could happen if you're having the repairs done post-closing. Is there anything that could come up like permits or other things we didn't think about that could be a cost to your buyers? And then let them know that's the risk. If we do it after, there could be, some other costs that come up, and if you're okay with that, I'm okay with it. That was one of my favorite lines that I learned from Tina's on repair negotiations, on initial, stuff. If you're going to say the buyer's asking for 15 and we're going to go back at 5, okay, these people have already told me if they don't get 10 or 12, they're walking. But if you want to go back with 5, if you're okay if they walk, then I'm okay if they walk. But I just want you to know this is what could happen. And so if you say that, then it's like, if you're good with it, I'm okay with it. I'm happy to go back to them. I just want you to know if we have to bring this back to market, we're going to have to disclose everything on here. And then we're also we may have to do the work. We might have to disclose it, and we may get less money because we're going back to market and they're going to ask what's wrong. So is it really worth the 3,000 or 5,000 that we're trying to save right now? Or do we want to appease them? Because actually that's giving us more power because we're being able to close the house. It's all about how you proposition it. They're going to be like, oh, well, I have to give in. I already had to give in on the price. Now I'm having to give in on repairs when they said they weren't really going to do anything. Okay, but what are you getting? You're closing the house, and you're getting to closing in a market where we've had more terminations than in the last 25 years. So do you want to move forward with this buyer, or do you want to start over? So just frame it differently. So in conclusion, be nice. Be nice to people. Be nice from the beginning. It's going to get you more things in the end. Have conversations. Explain why you're thinking the way you are. Don't be combative. Don't be the hero. I learned that the hard way when I first started out. You're trying to pinch every penny. I just did this with a seller that I had. They asked for a high amount. I was like, they're crazy what they're asking for. I said, why don't we come back with this? They're like, we're fine to give them X amount. I said, okay, it's your money. It was like 5,000 different. And I wanted to save that money, but I was like, you know what? It's not my money. They're okay. They want the security. They want to move forward. We're moving on. So don't feel like you have to pinch every little penny out of the house so you can put a story on, online that you won, because you're not winning. You could lose them. Think like the listing agent or the buyer agent when you're on the other side. How are they going to receive the email you write? Put it back in ChatGPT. Ask it to be softer. Make it understanding. I know your sellers are in a tough position, but this is really important to my client. They're really nervous about the joist under the house being cracked. They had a previous issue on another house where the floors were dipping. They had to have, tell a story and just fill the gap, and then tell them why you're doing this. And just, again, you want to think about how they're going to receive it before you send it. What is going to be, you're forecasting their next response off of the email you send. And same thing, use a different language to get them on your side. Listing agent perspective, like when you get something in from a buyer, acknowledge the seller. I know this is so frustrating. I totally understand. You're always on the seller side. I'm on your side. These people are crazy. Oh my gosh, I'm on your side, because I've been the other way, because you get something in and you feel like the seller should do it and they don't want to do it. And then they're like, who are you working for? So you're always on their side. If they feel like we have the upper hand and they won't walk, well, then explain terminations of people losing $10, $20, $30,000 because they didn't get their way, because there's more options out there. And maybe they're just, those type of people that are very emotional. And then give alternative options, or say, look, if this was your house, would you want the HVAC replaced? If you were moving in, when you go to Tennessee and you're moving into your new house and the HVAC wasn't working or the coil was broken, would you want that fixed? Like, make them feel bad.
But be on their side.
But be on their side. Just
But
give
make
them,
them feel bad.
because you need to, because it's such an emotional thing. You have to give them alternate options. Like, you have to give them another option for it. Do you want this or do you want this? Either one's fine. I'm willing to go to bat for you as long as you understand this could be the consequence. So that's it on my presentation, or just what I have written. Thanks, Kristen. Oh my gosh. Keep going. So yeah. Well, yeah. Anything else? I mean, I just tried to give you kind of my mindset in it, and it did not start out that way. So if you're not kind of through this or working through some of that, don't feel like you're not in that place yet, because I got in trouble a lot early on, feeling like, why can't they see it? This is so easy. This is such a good deal. Take it. And they can't take it. And they're going to come back with 1,000 when they're at 10. And the 10 is fair, but you have to be on their side. So just think through that.
What do you feel like because I ran into this just a couple weeks ago when I was negotiating something. Like, you obviously have your one person. I've got 2 contractors that I reach out to regularly. Both of them were driving me crazy and not giving me a quote. I'm like, please just quote, like reaching out. Please just give me a quote, even on these few things. Don't do the whole report, like just these few things. Could not get it. And it was getting up against time where I wanted to give the seller 6 days. Like, I wanted them to, and it wasn't a huge amount of money. So I did a boss cat thing, which I hate to do because I feel like that's the easy way out when you're sending it to a listing agent. So but I prefaced it like, I hate to do this, but my contractors are backed up and whatever. So they did spend the rest of the week like going back and forth on quotes and stuff too. And I still, I guess, what's your thought on, do you ever run into where you have to use some of those automated like reports to get quotes? Or
I haven't had to, because they'll pretty much get me. I mean, I'll call him and be like, I need you to ballpark this for me. Like, if I just even tell him what it is, or I send him the report and then I get on the phone, I'm like, I just ballpark me what you think. Even if I don't have
translate that to a listing agent, because you can't.
Well, I just got one for $28,500 with no backup besides a $2,000 deck repair, and we still gave them 10. So then I went in and went, okay, what's realistic for the roof leak that there could be? Is it, $500 for the roof? Is it, like, I'm going back to myself studying and going back to you should be going back to your previous contractor quotes, because we pretty much have most of the same things.
But how do you present that to a listing agent if you're representing a buyer? Like, because when I'm sending it, I want to send a contractor quote. I want to send an HVAC quote. I want to send,
Actually, like, are you sending that from the contractor, or are you just saying this is what we got quoted?
I send it from the contractor, but sometimes I'll just say, like, we're asking for $10,000 in lieu of repairs. Like, sometimes I won't without a backup. Yeah. It just depends. I mean, especially because sometimes I am trying to push the limit, or my clients are trying to push the limit, and I can't line item it out. So I'm going to go, we're asking for $10,000 in lieu of repairs.
Perceive that if you were on the listing side though, like, is that kind of like?
Yeah, I would just know. I would look at the report and go, I don't think there's probably $10,000 worth of work. I think we should probably counter with 5. But I feel like I personally am in a different position because I've done so many that I kind of know what's fair, where I go, look, you guys all have to understand, in any negotiation up front or on repairs for the sales price of the house or on repairs, people are wanting to come in the middle. The house is $450 and they come in at $415. They're probably willing to land at $427 or $430. If we ask for $15, and they're probably thinking we're going to come back with $7. Most people want to land in the middle. Most negotiations, especially if you haven't done it long enough, to say, do I need to come in at a more clear price and picture with the data, or do I need to ask for double to know I'm going to land on half? And most people, I'd say probably 75% of agents don't know as much of this side of it. So they're going to ask for more because their clients are going to say, why don't we ask for more? They're of course going to negotiate. So
and then their clients would never split the difference. So then you can't meet in the middle because they're all.
most people, want to meet in the middle. Well,
I
we
had
think people.
I was a professional agent for soccer players, and I just knew it. I was like, you're not going to meet in the middle. This dumb read this book one time, and we ain't meeting in the middle.
Yeah. So I think it just, you got to kind of read the person. And if you can't deliver it, then you're going off of, hey, I called him, he gave me some numbers over the phone, or you're just saying X amount in lieu of repairs. Here's the HVAC quote. And then that's separate from the ones you couldn't get a quote on, and you come up with a price you feel like is fair or the buyers would be okay taking, and then you just roll with it. I don't think we don't,
I did say my contractor said it's probably going to be a couple $1,000s.
Did they push back?
They were kind of nickel. It was just so funny because this offer was like one of the only offers I got accepted like immediately. Like we sent the offer and like 5 minutes later I got the signed offer back. So I was like,
great.
Wait.
Motivation.
So I thought like there was going to be no issue. We were only asking for a few $1,000s in repair or in concessions in lieu of repairs, but they took like the whole week and it got to be the day before DD. And we had a large amount of earnest on the line. So, when he was still coming back saying, they were still discussing, I was like, okay. I was like,
was the house on the market for a while?
Oh yeah. And
okay. So what I would have done in that situation is, hey, my buyers are really nervous. We either need to get this signed or they've told I have a termination basically in the wings.
I didn't say that. I did say, this is really important to my buyers. And I was like, if you need more time, I'm sending over a request to extend due diligence because we have 10 grand on the line. And like, if we don't have a clear answer on this, we need more time to process.
So back in the day, we used to do an extension or a termination. We would send them at the same time and say, you either are extending, we're sending you an extension.
So I don't know that I could have.
Right, but how much due diligence do they have?
They have 10 grand.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's a little.
Not due diligence, only 20.
Okay.
They had.
But you just have to go.
At the same time and say pick one to sign.
Yeah, because I was.
We did.
Savage.
We were savage.
2016
to 2019.
We put a fairly substantial amount of earnest money on the line. And I was like, and if we don't have an answer, we want an extension.
Yeah.
And then they sent back the signed 48.
But the thing is, they've been on the market. Then you got to go back to leverage. They've been on the market a long time. They don't want to lose you.
Did a bunch of
so they're not going to do it. Hey, we need this extension signed by 5. If the due diligence was tomorrow, we need this extension signed by 5 p.m. today, or we need a response. My clients are. I'm trying to talk them off the ledge again, getting them on I'm trying to talk them off the ledge, but like they said, they may have to terminate. Like this is that important to them. So please tell me which one we're doing. I'll send both if you need me to. Like you almost have to play that like chicken game a little bit.
Are you seeing are you kind of setting expectations for your sellers a little differently up front with the lower due diligences and like the crazy amount of terminations that we're seeing? Of like, okay, look, we might have to bend a little bit more during, inspections because buyers aren't putting as much due diligence on the line.
I'm going through the whole buyer mindset at the listing presentation.
Yeah.
We have 38% more inventory from 24 to 25 of December. That's the data we have. There's been more terminations in the last year across the country than there ever were before. Buyers have more options. There is less due diligence money, and they're asking for more things. I've seen on the list side, they're asking for more when repairs come back. We're going to do our best to make sure that, we get you the best deal. But the reality is they have options. And so we need to be careful and flexible on it. And I talk about it during the listing presentation, and I give them the data and I tell them what could happen. And then it's their choice. If I've already given them all this stuff and I said, we're going to have to be more flexible, they're going to ask for, and I'm giving them examples. I just got a request for 28,000. We gave them 10. I got one for 12 unsubstantiated. We gave them 500 in a cushion because they had 10 grand due diligence because we had multiple offers. If they only have 2,000, we don't have a lot of leverage. If there's more than $2,000 in repairs and they don't feel comfortable moving forward, they're okay to lose the 2 they put out to you because they know their repairs are going to be 10. So that's how I also validated. I go, okay, if someone has someone has 5,000 on the line, if I'm the listing agent and a buyer has given us $5,000 and they ask for 10, they've got 5,000 plus appraisal plus inspection. So they're probably in the property for about 7. So are they going to walk away from 7 to save 3? Right? Because if you add 3 to the 7, there's 10 grand right there. They could go to another property and lose it again. So like, that's the form in my mind. I talk to the seller and go, all right, let's be reasonable. If they ask for 10, we want to give them 5, that delta's 3 because they would be out 10. Does that make sense? I know it sounds kind of backwards, but I kind of work the numbers. Like, are they walking away from 7?
Rarely seeing 10 per DD, I feel like.
No, I'm saying like if it's 5 and then they're in it for, if the buyer gives 5, which is kind of normal, right? Like 3 to 5,000. If they give 5 and then they have 2 more into the deal, so they're in it for 7 and they ask for 10, they're saying like, there's $10,000 worth of things in this house. If I walk away, I'm losing 7. So really my gap is 3. So then you go, how do I float that gap down and maybe give them 5? That's what I'm saying. They're in,
they're always
their time. They're always in about 1,500 to 2,000 more. So you just have to look at it that way and then go, okay, how do we like squish that gap down? Are they walking away from 7 to keep 10 in the repairs?
Which is why when you're looking at offers as listing agent, and why like on the buy side, like be cognizant of due diligence, right? Because on the buy, like on the listing side, I always tell my sellers, look, offers are like mixing boards, right? Like it might seem really great to like turn that purchase price all the way up, but if due diligence is low as a result of maybe them offsetting with higher purchase price, like we may end up backing that down when we now have some disclosed material facts, some things we'd have to fix to go back to market, and a buyer that's willing to walk because they only have maybe $2 grand in this thing.
Yeah.
So, be cognizant of that when you're negotiating the initial offer. Most of you guys are really good about expecting higher DD out of buyers. Like in our group, I feel like we do a really good job.
I have one that's 15 days on market. We're offering in Raleigh. We went in at 2. It's a flip. We're having an appraisal addendum signed.
Yeah.
That says you're coming down to appraised value if it doesn't appraise. We are doing.
Don't ever let your seller sign that.
We're doing
at one time, and it's a terrible mistake.
We're doing $2,000 due diligence, $4,000 earnest because I don't know what's going to come up on inspection. And I gave all that data up front and said this is why we feel our number with the comps, because we came in lower than that, but we're settling higher because they're willing to sign that. I said, look, you have 2,000 due diligence. You have to think of that as gone. In our appraisal addendum, it doesn't say they get the due diligence back no matter what. Let's just 2,000 is gone. Okay. The document says if the house doesn't appraise for 430 or higher, we will furnish a copy of the appraisal to the seller along with an agreement to amend to lower the price to the appraised value. Seller will sign this document within 24 hours. I can't force them. They're going to sign the appraisal addendum up front with my offer because it's in the offer, right? As a reference. I can't force him to sign that amendment should the appraisal come in low, right? So what do I have to do? In order to enforce that document, I would have to litigate. So we have one of 3 options. We can terminate, we can go down to appraised value, or we can renegotiate the price. So I said, here's your options. 2,000's gone no matter what. Think of it that way. However, they know if our appraisal comes in low and they have to put it back on the market, it might come up again. Now we're a cash deal, but we want that because I feel that the number is too high. But we're only willing to sign the higher offer number with this appraisal addendum. So it just was interesting. But I see how I set her up. If I didn't set her up to say your 2 grand's gone, if they decide not to sign that document, then you can either move forward at the higher price if it doesn't appraise, you can renegotiate it, or you can terminate. But if I didn't tell her that, and then the person doesn't sign, now she's pissed at me because I signed this appraisal addendum. Why aren't they signing? So you have to think 3 steps ahead of the seller all times, as much as you can. I know it's hard, but it's a different frame.
Well, the root of all misery is unmet expectations.
Don't I know that?
So if you can set the expectation, and I think it's also hard because then people be like, well, I like to under deliver. What is it? Under promise and over deliver. That's what people's response to that. It's no, that's not what we're saying. Set the expectation that there will be high service on your side. It's not a performance thing. It's you need to understand the ramifications of what could happen, worst case scenario, and be willing to accept that. And then everything above that is a bonus, right? It's not like, oh, under promise, over deliver. Like I know people say it's like the key to sales. I think it's a wrong strategy, because we have a standard of care that we have to provide. Like you have to be obedient to your client. You owe them old car. Like you have things you have to do. So and it's the same reason you get in conversations about like tiered pricing. Like, no, everyone should have, I think, your highest level of service, but you do have to set the expectation of what could happen that's out of everybody's control. That's what you need to have. What's not in your control. Is we all know we can't get people to sign things.
And this is off topic, but it's the same thing as this situation I have. If you guys do a seller possession after closing, the way you sign that document is the house is as it remains the same as it was before. However, if the HVAC breaks, if there's holes in the wall, the seller just doesn't repair those things. Like, what if they just leave and they're in Texas and they're like, I'm not fixing it? What happens? Do you guys know that? You sign the document that says it's in the like condition it was as when they got it, right? And they're in it for 2 weeks. You go there, the HVAC's not working, they're somewhere else. You have to litigate. You have to go to an attorney, pay the attorney to force them to enforce the contract. It's not just they're going to do it. So I don't know if you know that, but like I learned this a long time ago. So when I explain it to the buyer or the seller of a buyer possession or seller possession, guys, you just need to know that this is not just automatically enforced. If they don't do the right thing, then you have to go to a lawyer and they have to enforce the document. The document is what's enforceable, not the actual like service piece or what happens if I tear a hole in this wall and then you come here and I'm gone. So just be cognizant of that when you're doing those possession documents, because it's not just, oh yeah, everything will be good. Anyway,
the reason we have lawyers is because people don't do what the paper says. So like I think it's very important. Like people are really bad about saying, oh yeah, well you'll get your earnest money back if you terminate during due diligence. Well, maybe, but also maybe not.
Or not for a while.
Maybe the seller disagrees because they felt like it wasn't fair, and they're gonna say, no, I'm not gonna release it, and now you have to go litigate for it. Like no, it's not automatically coming back. Like that's what the paper says, but like that's why lots of people are employed, right? And then to the bar is because they have to then go and handle these situations when we don't do what the paper says. So just remember, like paper is not almighty. It's not protecting your clients, because people can do whatever they want to.
I do feel like we're seeing more additional earnest versus regular earnest.
Yeah.
Then they don't have to deliver it.
I know I should have done that on this one.
I think that's how I'm writing. I feel like now too, because I think it protects your buyer more. Honestly, because then they don't have to check that box.
Any questions online at the beach?
I do have one. So I have a contractor too that I go to, and I had a similar story to Kristen where he just like took forever in a day. And so I started going out to just like the items that were specified to the actual contract, like HVAC, for instance. I went to an HVAC company, tried to get a quote, and they were like, well, it's money for a quote since y'all are under contract, kind of thing. Have you come across that a lot?
Yeah, I mean, for them to give you an estimate of what's really going on, it's probably $175 for a service fee to get out and look at it. So yes, I mean, HVAC is more specialty. I would say, like, if it was my client, I would always have them do that, because then we don't know what's wrong. Because here's the thing, if you have low Freon in a unit, they could have and you put that in your repair request, they could come out and fill the Freon, and then there's a coil leak, and then it leaks out, depending on if it's a small or a large leak. You could have to replace the coil, which could be $1,500 to $2,500. So like, I'd rather have my HVAC person go out, give me $175, hey, look at the system and tell me exactly what's wrong and how to fix it. And then I submit that to the sellers. So in that case, for that specific item, yes, I would say I would want that done. But like all the other contract work, you could put on replacing a hot water heater and some of that stuff that's not as expensive. But yeah, I think it's just, you've got to have someone that, like, I can count on Chris. Like, he will answer the phone for me if he's in a crawl space working. Like, I'm in a crawl space working right now. I'll call you back in 10 minutes. Like, I just have that relationship with him because it's that important. And I've given him a lot of business.
And that's the second part, guys. The reason that if you lose connectivity with the contractor, it's because you burned them too many times calling for quotes and you didn't send them work.
Well, that's the frustrating thing is I've sent both these people work. And so I'm like,
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I would have.
I've sent my guy work too.
Yeah, and I would just call them like 3 times in a row, world dial them. Like, I'm serious. Like, I need this right now.
I think it's the same thing that you guys are looking for too on clarity is like, I'm not saying you should stay in your transaction for 3 months afterwards, following up to see if work's being done. But like, you know, like just be cognizant. Like if there was an expectation that work was being done, they can't get up with your buyer or seller that, you know, they thought they were gonna do the work for. Just like, you know, clear it up. Like,
Or you know what? Put it back on the client. Hey, make a couple calls, get a couple. Why are we doing? We don't have to do everything. Like sometimes it's like they can go call a contractor too. Sometimes I have people call a contractor while I'm calling a contractor. So it's like we take a lot of that on that it's like totally our responsibility. Well, if they want these things too, this is their house. So if I can't get my guys and they're busy and something's going on, well, hey guys, can you maybe, call around to a couple of different places? I'm having problems with my folks. Like we don't have to have all the answers. We can advise them, but sometimes they got to take it on themselves too.
Yeah, and I think HVAC was a bad example because it was another contractor that I had called too, and he had mentioned saying the same thing, like a quote to come out there to, or I'm sorry, an expense to go out there and do a quote. And I was like, what?
Well, yeah, that's just, you got to find someone who's willing to, like my crawl space guy goes out for free. My electricians, I can send them the inspection report and they'll quote it right from the inspection. So like, you just have to find different people then. That's hey, go make new contacts with someone that's going to understand that they're getting business, and guess who the client is for a vendor? You.
Right. Yeah.
They need to
Awesome.
bend over backwards too, because we don't go out to houses and say, hey, pay me. We do it for free. Pay me.
Quote off your inspection report and then right back.
Who?
So Arc Electric.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And they'll, if you send.
Heart. We use Heart too. Heart Electric.
Mm-hmm. But they'll quote.
Like I had the people come out and give us quotes to replace the poly piping for free. Yeah. I can't remember who it was, but my client that was like right by Womble Park, like had someone come out and they did it for free. So you just have to find people that are willing to do it, that you trust, and that you give some business to, or they at least want the shot at it. They're going to take it if you give them a shot, because why not get more business?
So. And one other thing, quickly, I think that's good, helpful to look at is when you guys get an inspection report back, I always bucket them 2 ways. There's like maintenance on the house that the sellers should have been doing or could be doing, or more buyers will need to do in the future. And then there are things that are broken. And I always bucket it into those 2 things, because what happens, I think a lot of times when you get these outrageous reports, is people are taking like maintenance style items, things that you inherit as a homeowner to maintain, and they start putting that into, well, this should be maintained when I get there. No, it's a long going maintenance. So one of the scripts that I use on both sides is, we're in the business of repairing, right? Mm-hmm. We're not in the business of upgrading, right? We might be in the business of replacing if it warrants because something's wrong, but we're not in the business of presenting a home that's fully maintained. And so like when I go through inspection reports, that's the thing I'll do, is I'll go through and I'll just mentally or do like a highlighter check and be like, broken. Like what's the first thing that you go through? And it's like, this is broken. Mm-hmm. This is broken. It's not functioning as it's supposed to. That should always be like your tier 1. And then if you have deferred maintenance, right, maybe that's tier 2. Oftentimes those will correlate, right? Because the deferred maintenance usually is what leads to the broken. Yeah. But like, that's why like I got so frustrated, because it was like flashing and like bonding on like just some really stupid like things that like any home inspector is going to point out. It's going to be part of your buyer's maintenance process as they move forward. Like those are not the things that you need to spend time getting information on. Mm-hmm. You need to look for what's broken and not functioning properly.
Sometimes in like opposite of that, sometimes the buyers, like you can't reason. So you have to go, hey, you go to the listing agent, this is what my buyers asked me to request. It's not right, but you have to be on their side. Like I had someone years ago when I was negotiating for another agent, there were no lights in the ceiling. Like it was one of those houses probably, and it was not even an old house. It's just probably one of the new ones where they had a light in the wall. But like, we want lights put in. And I'm sitting there and the agent didn't have the conversation with her. And I was like, well, I don't know that we can ask for lights to be put in the ceiling because they weren't there when you saw the house and you put your offer in. you work for me and I want the lights in the ceiling. And I was like, oh, okay. But it's because there was no expectation set. That it goes back to the expectations, because I'm sitting here at 5 o'clock with these people in the office and the agent didn't have the conversation. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go see what I can do. I'm going to ask the seller, no problem. And that's all you do. Like, you remove yourself, because we get so, like, I even do it still. We get so, like, take it so much on us. It's like, you're asking for it. I'm presenting it. If we don't get it, it's not my fault. Like, they said no. So either you take it or you don't take it. What do you want to do? Like, that's, we take too much on.
But I think in your buyer consultation, like, set that expectation up front. Like, the seller is not responsible to do anything. So per the contract. So anything that we get is a win. It's an automatic win, because we're defining what you're contractually signing on the 2T. So you're already ahead.
I still feel like I forget that conversation.
They 100% they do, which is why those loan videos can be really helpful. Like, it's great to have like a quick like screenshot of where it talks about North Carolina real estate as is. Like, it's really important that they understand that. But then I think from there, it is good to say anything that we get is a win, but we want to make sure that we're focusing those wins on things that really make sense for the seller to take care of. And then you never know. Sometimes you have sellers too, like, Ashley's not wrong. I've literally sent inspection reports over just to be like proactive and say, I know it's going to take a couple days to get information. And like, those listing agents sent me back the inspection report with receipts where the sellers, just from a pride standpoint, they wanted to get it all done. So I always think my threshold was this: if the inspection report was comprehensive enough that I felt like it helped more than it hurt to send the thing in its entirety up front before we had our asks, I will send it. And I used to have like a page benchmark. It depends on who your inspector is. Mine was so simple that if Corey White produced a 40-page inspection report out the gate, I would send it with no request, because it was overwhelming enough to the seller that I felt like my leverage was good. Now, if I got a really good squeaky one, no way. I'm not sending it over in its entirety up front, because I don't want you to know how clean your house is, right?
Yeah. Yes. And then that's when you ask for the $5,000 in lieu of repairs.
Correct.
If there's not a lot of line items, you figure.
It's surprised, because I have one in Chapel Hill, but the sellers were just the type of people where they wanted to say house in great shape. So like, I didn't even ask for anything, and they had come back and basically tackled everything and more than my people would have asked for. It's not the norm, but it does happen. And sometimes sending that inspection report in its entirety, if it's overwhelming enough,
we're still digesting the report. Here's the. We want to get it to you early. We know we have a tight due diligence time frame.
I just want your sellers to have the opportunity, because you don't know the split on the differential on the HVAC, which you didn't catch that. Like, it just means it's not cooling to where it's supposed to, right? Or it's not heating to where it should. Always remember, you're never gonna get, like, it's summertime. You have buyers that walk into houses and it's 90 degrees outside, and they kick the AC down to 68, and they're like, well, I'm gonna get a shake cake. It's not gonna get more than 20 degrees cooler inside. Like, that's a great one to point out while you're there. But
so then they can't.
Or they can't test.
Or they can't test opposite.
If it's a heat pump.
Cooling.
Exactly.
It's only on a heat pump. On a furnace, you can't.
Yeah. So that's like just one of those places where, again, like, yes, I'm still digesting, I'm still working, but here's the report in its entirety. Because they may have that they had a service on it 3 weeks ago before they brought it to market, and they thought it was operating fine, and now it's a matter of them just calling the service company out. Now you save $175 on the secondary inspection for your client.
Yeah, my clients had my handyman over after we negotiated the repairs, the credit, and I saw him on the front porch. This was my past client. I go, "What are you doing here?" He's like caulking the backsplash. I'm like, you gave them, this was the one where I felt like they gave too much. And I was like, you gave them all this money. Why are you doing? They wanted just it to be right, because they just felt like doing it. I'm like, that's not my money. We have to worry. It's not our money.
2 years ago, I sent the agent the full inspection report, not anticipating that she would send it. There were things on there we did not care about. The homeowner had built it.
Oh, that one. Oh, the meticulous. The meticulous grass.
And then I'm just like, you think my house is falling apart, do you even still want to buy it? I was mortified. I'm like, we did not want those. We do not care about those
Mhm.
things. That's
Yeah.
an old point. We went back through and changed everything.
Oh my gosh.
Fixed all of
Mhm.
without us pride.
Yeah. All right, everyone online, thanks for listening. This has been Inspection Reports. Ashley Bommarito.
Ashley's
See you
busy,
later.
so you can't just like use her as like a private index of all your problems.